Wake up, wake up. The 49ers better not get embarrassed tonight. That, to me, is the goal of the day. Do not get embarrassed. Let's go.
Monday, December 30th. Welcome to Wake Up, brought to you by Sam's Chowder House. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger. And yeah, Larry, the theme is do not get embarrassed. I'd say even a more important theme is do not get anybody hurt. The 49ers are playing with a little bit of fire, with Brock Purdy going behind a less than second string offensive line. The Detroit Lions are coming out here with a whole bunch of fury balled up, and they feel like they want to put it on the Niners. And I'll trade you all the embarrassment right now for all the health that you can sell me in this game. The 49ers have played themselves into a bad spot. There's a really good team coming to play a bad team. So embarrassment is certainly on the table. We'll see how it all shakes out, but we are winding down the quarters of 2024 like we're winding down the hours of 2024. And frankly, Larry, I can't wait for it to all be over. Good Lord, this has been a slog at the end here.
Yeah, not every year is going to be a good year. That's why they have parades when you win Super Bowls, because you know what? It's just every year is not your year, and this has not been the 49ers year. A lot of it is their own undoing, and some of it is the schedule maker and that kind of thing, but it's a lot of them. It's a lot of them. And now here come the Lions in a rematch of last year's NFC Championship game, and they're looking for revenge. They blew a 17-point halftime lead. They missed out on their first Super Bowl appearance. It's been haunting Dan Campbell, you would imagine, ever since. And they're still fighting for the top seed. They carry a perfect road record into this one. They're 7-0 on the road. And, but they've lost 14 consecutive road games to the 49ers, including the playoffs. So we shall see. The Lions can clinch the number one seed and home field advantage for the playoffs with a win and a Vikings loss to the Packers on Sunday night, but that didn't happen. So, or I should say the Lions can clinch the number one seed and home field advantage next week if the Vikings lose to the Packers on Sunday night. But you know what? This is going to be a huge turnaround. The Niners are going to need a huge turnaround. They need to generate turnovers, and they have just one takeaway in their past 5 games, second fewest in the NFL in that span. So to me, that's a big part of it. You have to be able to generate turnovers to beat a team that's better than you. And the 49ers have not been able to do that. The teams are playing a lot more man against them than they otherwise would. And then teams are running the ball with success against them. And then when you run the ball with success, you keep it out of the air. I think Kyle Shanahan made the point this week, 80% of the turnovers in the NFL are on pass plays. So when a team can run the ball effectively against you, that's just another area where you're typically not going to be able to win, and that's turnovers.
Yeah, that's just some Big Ten football thinking right there. 3 yards in a cloud of dust when you throw a football. 2 bad things can happen. 3 outcomes and 2 of them are bad. You got an interception and an incomplete pass, So, when you put the ball in the air, you're risking it more. Robust running games are what you want to see take over behind offensive lines that take over games. And it's so funny. I'm sure as the 49ers were for a minute there, the blueprint of what other NFL teams were chasing. Well, shoes on the other foot now. The Lions very much have a blueprint that other NFL teams are envy of. And I'll tell you, the most impressive thing about the Lions, Larry, is all the injuries that they've had, and they still just keep on chugging. Like the lack of turnovers, like you said, the lack of, maybe the stout level performances that we saw earlier in the year. It's incredible that they've done, they haven't regressed into the loss column more often than they have because of their injuries. Dan Campbell should honestly, I think he's NFL Coach of the Year level consideration. He's done an incredible job.
Every injury is not the equal of every other injury. I think that's what should be learned from that. True. Because, if you lose Trent Williams, that's more than losing a backup corner. if you lose Christian McCaffrey, that's more than losing a backup safety. The 49ers have lost. They've been gutted with their best players. I mean, and then the Lions and Brad Holmes has done a much better job than John Lynch in the 49ers of personnel. That's really as simple as that. So they're just deeper. And even though they've lost a ton, and they have, they still have the offensive firepower, even without David Montgomery, to score 30-plus points. The Niners, by comparison, have scored 23 points over the last 2 games. And they're running out of gas. The 49ers, 5 of their last 6 losses have come by at least 6 points. The Lions already have 7 double-digit point victories this season. I think there's a very high likelihood tonight is number 8.
Yeah, and look, any defeat by the 49ers should not be met with anger. I mean, you got to seriously detach yourself from the concept of winning is bad for the 49ers at this point in the year, because it isn't. It isn't. So much so, I would definitely be in the asset protection business tonight, just so there's no second guessing, just so everyone knows where I stand on this. I would not play George Kittle tonight. I would not play Brock Purdy tonight. I think the 49ers are really, kind of tugging on Superman's cape by playing. This league now has 4 weeks of preseason built into its regular season, and for teams to not use the end of a year when you're eliminated as a second preseason or the first preseason to set up what you might look like a little bit more next season, I think you're out of your minds. You got to start building towards the future the minute the present is over. I really believe that. So I think that the Niners are making a mistake strategically going into this game. I hope it doesn't bite them in the rear end, because I don't think they're winning. The Lions are the better team. Where the NFL really screwed this one up, Larry, and you and I have talked so much about scheduling and how it's worked against the Niners and rest advantages and disadvantages. Just in terms of a league that's looking to pimp the hottest game it possibly can week in, week out, why did they save this one for so long at the end of the year? I mean, there is maybe both teams really, really need it at the end of the season, and it'll be like a playoff preview. Both teams would have really, really needed this at week 5. Why wouldn't you put this marquee prime time game in a point in the season where both teams were still very much in a blood feud over needing to win the game? I just think that the NFL is so particular about what game is on when and how many people will be interested in this one. And here's a special matchup we think you're going to love. And why did they save this fantastic matchup to a point in the year where it might not even matter? It's really weird.
The Niners are playing in prime time, I think, for the 6th time this year. So, they've been in prime time with a bunch of other matchups.
This is it. This is last year's NFC Championship.
This used to be it. I don't think this is it right now. That's for sure. Who knows? The way the scheduling came down. The one thing they are doing, they're prioritizing these premier matchups, even if it doesn't make sense. And here is a perfect example. It doesn't really make sense. And yet the 49ers are getting a rest disadvantage in week 18. Not that it matters because they're out of it, but they just want to squeeze them into another primetime game, But back to your previous point about Brock Purdy, I don't get this. I'm not getting this. So somebody has to explain this to me. And I think somebody needs to explain this to Shanahan and to Lynch, because I think they are walking into a huge negative PR situation. Huge. Absolutely huge. The Niners are Brock Purdy is on the verge of getting paid. It's not like possibly. The 49ers themselves have said, we plan to extend this guy this year. Okay. The 49ers already are paying money to hurt players like Trent Williams, Brandon Ayuk, and Christian McCaffrey. The last thing they need to do is saddle themselves to another hurt player. But that's essentially what they've committed to if Brock Purdy gets hurt, either this week or next week, in meaningless football, because they've already said they're going to extend him. They've already said they're going to pay him. So what happens if he suffers a major injury? Then what? You're still going to pay a quarterback $50 million, maybe?
Well, and
are
here's
you
the
then
thing.
going to try to? Are you playing him in these games so you potentially can get a discount? I mean, what is the reason that you're playing him behind Austin Pleasance, Nick Zakel, Jake Brendel, Dominic Pooney, and Charlie Heck? Because if McKivitz can't go, he's a game time decision. Pleasance is going to start for Jalen Moore at left tackle, who is starting for Trent Williams. Nick Zakel will make his first NFL career start at left guard. I know he's Brock's buddy, but still, it's his first start. Brendel is graded out as one of the worst centers all season long. Pooney is a rookie, but he's definitely fatiguing late in the year. He's not the same player that he was early in the year, in my opinion. And Charlie Heck is a fourth-round pick out of North Carolina who's just on the street. And you're going to put your franchise quarterback. You're going to tell Trent, you're good, big boy. Have a great offseason. You're going to tell Greenlaw, we're taking you out. And you're going to play your starting quarterback behind a line that could be 4/5 of a line that you would play in like the final preseason game. What happened to, hey, you know what? Brock's going to come out when Trent comes out. Right. That's like if Kyle Shanahan said that to us once or twice in the last 5 years, I know that I've heard that. Oh, yeah, it's preseason game 2. Yeah, Brock's probably going to go as long as Trent goes. And then everybody, all of us, the media people, sit there in the auditorium nodding like trained seals. Oh, yeah. Smart, of course. Smart. That's why you're you, and we're here. And
football guy.
That's why you're the smart guy, Shanahan, and that's why you're living in a $12 million mansion, and we're just over here having a free hot dog because that's the way you think, because what happened to that? What happened to that? Now you're going to play a team that's in a make-believe game that doesn't matter at all. This is in a game where the Lions are pissed. The Lions want revenge. The Lions want to take their pound of flesh away from the Niners. The Lions would just want to have more points. The Lions want to have a beat down. The Lions want to have a jailbreak on the quarterback, an embarrassment. And you're going to put what do you think? I mean, forget me and you, because we call it straight either way, but we don't have an agenda. But what about all the people out there that do have an agenda? The Nick Wrights of the world, the content creator universe of the world that is literally chomping at the bit to replace both Brock and Shanahan, and you're going to throw them red meat by potential. What do you think the reaction of Nick Wright is going to be? What do you think the reaction of players around the league is going to be if all of a sudden you play Brock Purdy behind a horrible line and he gets hurt? And then let's take it one more step. You play Brock Purdy behind a horrible line and he gets hurt, and now you don't want to pay him what he's asking for. I mean, the optics, it doesn't take a genius to see that the optics are horrible.
Well, and
for Shanahan and Lynch. So I hope it's all I will say is, if I see these guys up in the booth, it's like, dude, you're the smart guy. I'm the guy eating the free hot dog. You're the guy who knows everything. I'm the guy just sitting here in the press box with everybody else who doesn't know anything. And you know what? You're going to have to answer for why your quarterback is not ready in week 1 if he has a serious injury this week or next. Why would you take that chance? And I threw this out to Dieter in a live stream the other day, and Dieter's like playing the devil's advocate. And he's like, well, you want to see if Brock's going to get better against man coverage. You want to see if he can establish a rhythm with Pearsall and Cowing. And, I just screw all of that. You had 15 weeks to do all of that. You didn't get it done. You can't get it done now. I think Shanahan is a smart guy, but occasionally in the game, Damon, when they fall behind, he has that look on his face like, I want to get back those 7 points like yesterday. I want to get that 7 points back now. I know I like offensive balance, but screw offensive balance. If we've got to throw it every down on this drive, we are going to throw it because we are going to score a touchdown and answer. He has that feel sometimes where he's like very impulsive with his football play calling. And I get the feeling that I don't know if they told him you got to get to 8 wins or what. But I mean, this is odd to put your starting quarterback out there on the verge of paying him behind 4/5 of a really bad offensive line. I hope it works out. I hope it works out. That's all I got to say.
Look, so we are both. So no one is like, oh, you guys are second guessing. Everyone knows exactly where Larry and I stand on this one. And it is kind of amazing that a team that is, always weighing risk reward factors doesn't see that there's no reason to have such a big risk when there truly is no reward. Brock Purdy throws for 500 yards in a win tonight. He is not going to be a better quarterback next season. He's not. I don't think.
And also, where's the consistency, Damon? We're talking about Kyle Shanahan, who literally last week ran on 3rd and 9 to just punt. Like, you know what? Screw it. It's 3rd and 9. We can't get this. We'll run and we'll punt. So you're gonna on 3rd and 9, you're gonna give away your 3rd down pass play, even though teams convert 3rd and 9s against your sorry defense all the time, but you can't go for it against another team's defense because of the potential of huge negative plays happening, potentially that hurt Brock, I would imagine. That's why you do that kind of a conservative play call.
I got to be honest.
Why do you have that conservative play call on 3rd and 9 if you're going to sit there and put him out there for 70 snaps against the Lions with 4/5 of a really bad line? It was a really bad line before the backups came in.
Exactly. Dude, here's the thing. This whole date's been a bad date. Right. The Uber was late to pick us both up. I didn't like what you were wearing when you got in the car. You obviously looked at me and kind of rolled your eyes too. The service was lousy. The food wasn't very good. The cocktails were off. We're definitely not going back to my place. We just need this thing to be over. And that's where the season is.
I'm good. Tanking is for losers.
This isn't tanking.
What do you think? What do you think sitting Trent Williams is? What do you think sitting Trent Williams had a high ankle sprain like 4 weeks ago. If the Niners were in it, he's playing tonight.
Right.
The Niners are not in it, so he's not playing tonight. So is Shanahan tanking? I guess to some degree, he's not playing Trent Williams, his best left tackle. And he would be playing him if there was a playoff berth on the line tonight. Trent Williams is playing. Dre Greenlaw is playing. They're not playing. Well, if they're not playing, aren't you tanking?
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Trent got hurt, right? And we don't know if his high ankle's ready to go. You would like to think like, if this one mattered, he'd be out there tonight. But, look,
I got to think he would be.
He probably would be because the player plays when it's on the line. But there's nothing on the line tonight. There really isn't. Like everyone's like, well, I just hope we don't get embarrassed tonight. Dude, why would you be embarrassed if the 49ers lose 50-0? You're not involved in the team. I know that you root for them. You'll be disappointed that the team that you root for, but you shouldn't transfer that there shouldn't be transfer.
Anytime you get beaten by
here. Right.
But every time you get beaten down, I mean, okay, you want to, you compete. You win, you lose. Everybody can live with winning or losing. You can compete. You can live with winning or losing by 2 touchdowns.
Look, I'm an
there's
Indiana
embarrassment. This is an iconic franchise that was in the
Right.
Super Bowl. You don't want to get beat by 40 on national TV.
I get it. But it just doesn't matter. There's nothing left. There's not a singular thought of football remaining for the 49ers this year that matters. None of it goes into we're building something and we're absolutely going to carry this momentum into next year. You guys can't carry momentum from one series into the next. Give me carry momentum from 2024 into 2025. My balls, you are. This just ain't going to happen. So the only momentum that you can truly carry from the end of this year into next year is another bad injury. And if it happens to your quarterback, how many bad injuries do you really want a young man to come back from? That whole elbow thing. It's real good that Brock came back from that. Do you really want him to have an ACL, MCL? Do you want that?
To me, it's not that there's nothing to be gained. There is something to be gained. It's just a matter of risk versus reward. There's something to be lost. And does nobody else see that? Brandon Ayuk is not going to be there week 1. Not going to be there. Do you want Brock Purdy not to be there? Because guess what also won't be there? A victory. You're not going to win. This is now I'm all about winning the Super Bowl. You want to win this year's Super Bowl. When you can't win this year's Super Bowl, I'm all about winning next year's Super Bowl. Now, can Brock Purdy establish a rapport tonight with Jacob Cowie? Sure.
No.
Can he establish a rapport tonight? He could. Yeah, he could. He could absolutely establish a rapport with a receiver in a football game.
How about this? How about before we get to the rapport part of this conversation, let's see if they can say a word to each other. I mean, that's the thing.
I'm just saying,
if Brock Purdy could throw a ball to Jacob Cowing, we should have figured that out in week 5. Should we have not? Like, this is where it's a little too late in the year to make friends now. What are you going to find your best friend in high school the last week of your senior year? Come on. I mean,
it could happen. It could happen. I'm just saying, I'm trying to put myself, I have already stated that I think it's 10 times fucking stupid. I've already stated that. So I think it's totally stupid. That's where I'm coming from. As far as I'm just trying to understand it from Shanahan's point of view, what is the biggest positive you can get out of this? Okay, that and it's very self-oriented. Like, yeah, if the 49ers play really hard tonight, and either win the game or get close, Shanahan can be like, man, my guys play hard. And it kind of reflects well on him, and it reflects well on the coaching staff if his guys really are out there grinding. And if somehow Brock Purdy plays well, or if somehow Nick Zakelj played well, or Austin, somebody played well tonight, they could take that and be like, yeah, you know what? That's a real positive for next year. But all of those positives added up together, stacked one on top of another, still don't come a country mile away from the negative that's going to come about if Brock Purdy gets hurt and can't play in September because of week 17. And I don't understand. I'll just say this. I don't get it. And I don't get, we'll see what it looks like tonight. But if this winds up being your typical Kyle Shanahan 65% pass because they fell behind, and it's Brock Purdy at the end of the day with 5 sacks and 12 hits on the quarterback, he deserves to be ripped. I don't even care if Brock Purdy is out for the year or not. If Brock Purdy takes double-digit hits in a meaningless game at the end of the year behind a makeshift offensive line, that is gross negligence on the part of the Niners. How could it not be? I don't care if you're the biggest Niners suck up that ever walked the goddamn earth. How could you not be slightly perturbed if your franchise quarterback, I'll say this, if I'm Kyle Strongen, the agent for Brock Purdy, and Brock plays a bunch of snaps tonight and gets hurt, and the Niners come and say, we'll offer you $25 million a year, $30 million a year, and he says, I want 60, and they're like, you're hurt. I mean, I don't want to hear I'm hurt. I want to hear I went out there in week 17 for you and for the team, for the good of the team. You better compensate me. So they're getting in they're already paying Ayuk to sit. They can't afford to do the same with Purdy. It's as simple as that.
Could shoot your eye out, kid. I mean, it's all fun and games with that new Red Ryder BB gun until somebody gets their eye shot out. And that's what they are dealing with here tonight. And I hope Brock does not get his eye shot out. By the way, welcome to Wake Up. Damon Bruce, Larry Krueger. We're brought to you by Sam's Chowder House down in Half Moon Bay. I know a lot of eating just happened over the last week or so. Start your new year out right with a little trip down to Half Moon Bay when you can. Get to Sam's Chowder House. The place is absolutely fantastic. We love that they have sponsored us, and we're going to be back tomorrow morning. Win, lose, or draw, we will be back tomorrow doing Wake Up on a Tuesday. We normally join you Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. We'll be taking Wednesday off, New Year's Day off, so everyone enjoy all your bowl games and have a great and safe New Year's Eve. But when you start making plans in 2025, make a plan to get down to Sam's Chowder House in Half Moon Bay. We absolutely love our partnership with Sam's. Look, you want to talk about just put yourself in another team's shoes for a little bit. Like, look at New York Giants fans. You know, I saw that the New York Giants at the podium were like, man, we really needed that win, and it was good for the locker room and all that stuff. Yeah, that's great. That's great. That's great. You guys just blew the chance to control the entire draft board, you morons. Like, you had the number 1 overall pick right there on your stick. You're looking for quarterback, whether you think Shedeur Sanders is going to be the next great quarterback or Akili Smith 2.0, doesn't matter. You can have him. You can have the next guy. You can have anybody. You can control the entire board with the number 1 overall pick, and they're probably not looking at that now. There's a very good chance that New England's going to have that now because
it's done. It's a done deal.
Huh?
It's actually a done deal mathematically.
Oh, it's
New
okay.
England New England right now has the number 1 pick, and I believe they have the tiebreaker. Is everybody? I think New England, Tennessee, Cleveland, Giants are all at 3 and 13, but New England on strength of schedule has the worst strength of schedule of those 5 teams.
Well, good. Then congratulations for the Patriots. And I got a guy right here, Clarence. Patriots taking Travis Hunter. The Giants are fine. What, you don't think the Patriots might trade? You don't think the Raiders are thinking, geez, let's call the Patriots and see if we can get up to number 1 because we're looking for a quarterback too.
Yeah. I mean, wait, let's message to everybody. Travis Hunter is likely not going number 1. I know there's a lot of talk about Travis Hunter going number 1. He's almost assuredly not going number 1.
Yeah, he's a cornerback.
Number 1 pick is going to be either Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, and it's probably going to be Cam Ward. It's probably going to be Cam Ward.
And I don't know who the right choice is, and I don't care. But the fact is, the Giants had a chance to control the board. They go out and they win when they needed to lose. And conversely, the Colts lose when they need to win. So, I mean, you just had 2 clusterfuck organizations showing you who they really are down to their bone marrow in that game yesterday between the Colts and the Giants. That was unbelievable. Everything you need to know about these franchises is happening right in front of you. And then just to dot it, you have, once again, Saquon Barkley, going 2,000 yards and is like 100 yards away from the all-time single-season rushing record. They got to sit him now, and they should. The Eagles will, if they're smart, say, Saquon, you've been incredible. You should win MVP this year almost, but you can't play in a meaningless game because you shouldn't be playing assets in meaningless football games, whether they're meaningless because you qualified for the playoffs or meaningless because you didn't qualify for the playoffs.
Well, I have a different belief on this. Okay. It's football, right? They do play the full season, and everybody should play the full season. Unless you're a team like the 49ers that has played 12 extra games in the last 4 years. So basically you've played the equivalent of an extra season of playoff games. In that scenario, when you've played all these meaningful games, you haven't had any meaningless games. Now you've got a couple meaningless games. Play your young guys.
Yeah, take advantage of it.
Find out about your young guys. Find out about Tanner Mordecai. I need to find out more about Tanner Mordecai than I need to see Brock Purdy behind this line.
If Kyle gives Deebo Samuel 8 fucking carries before he gives Abinaconda 1, I don't know what it is you do here, Kyle. Like, what, why would you see if Deebo can run the ball again when you A, already know he can, and B, have a lot of data points that also say he really can't anymore, but you're going to keep hammering that nail instead of trying a new tool in your tool belt? I just don't get it. I don't get how Kyle is like almost allergic to trying something out. It's amazing to me.
Well, he doesn't want to do it. He doesn't want to do it. He was asked by Jake Hutchinson this week, hey, will you use these final 2 games to experiment? And he's like, no, we will not be experimenting. We're going to do everything we can to win. Okay. But you didn't win and you haven't won. And hopefully you won't win because what good is winning when you're out of it? I mean, now, as far as there is no advantages to losing, really, for the 49ers, if you look at their situation, there really is no advantage. I've looked at all the scenarios. They're at the 11th pick right now.
The
If
highest
they
team is what, ninth or something?
10, or
10.
they could somehow maybe jump New Orleans, who are one pick ahead of them. So they can move up to like one spot, maybe two, I think. But if they won the last couple games, they could fall a few spots down from 11 to like more like 16, 17.
Right, 15, 16, 17, right.
Yeah, but so I mean, and obviously it's a pivotal draft for the 49ers. And there's a lot of intriguing players at the top of the draft, but then there's also, their situation where they need a lot. So they probably need to trade down no matter where they wind up. And to me, it's not about tanking. There's no tanking. Like I don't blame the Giants necessarily for going out there and playing, because they have a losing culture and they're trying to reverse their culture. And if there was a player at the top of the draft that was like a once in a lifetime player, it'd be one thing, but that's not the case. And I just think that, in their situation, I know there are a lot of people that are mad at Drew Lock today. Actually, I'll tell you, my takeaway from watching that game is Drew Lock might be the perfect number 2 quarterback next year for the 49ers. Why? Because he's better than Brandon Allen, better than Josh Dobbs, not a rookie, and also not good enough where he's ever going to really threaten Brock's starting job. But he's definitely capable, and he's got a big body, big arm. He's 28. He's in his physical prime. I kind of like what I saw against the Niners from Drew Lock a year ago when he played in that game against the Niners for the Seahawks. I was surprised the Seahawks cut him loose, and I was surprised that the Giants went with Daniel Jones and not Drew Lock, because I thought Drew Lock was better than Daniel Jones. And now here it is late in the year. He had 5 touchdowns yesterday, 4 passing, 1 rushing, and they're probably going to move off for their franchise quarterback. And he's probably, just one free agent. He made $5 million this year. That's roughly what I think I would probably be willing to pay him next year. So, you know what? That to me, Drew Lock's kind of an interesting guy to consider for the Niners.
Why did it take so long for the Giants to get to him? I mean, given what they had in front of them, right?
That's why they're bad. I mean,
yeah.
That's why Brian Daboll's bad. I mean, Brian Daboll, a lot of people think, oh, Brian Daboll, look what he did in Buffalo. We got, this guy was quoting stats to the GM off his phone. They looked like the bumbling idiots as they kissed off Saquon Barkley, letting him go in the division to their arch rival who won the division, and then watch this guy become the new Eric Dickerson. He's literally 101 yards away from setting the new NFL single season record.
By the way, Larry, go back and watch that footage again from the Hard Knocks HBO with the Giants offseason. Those meetings are aging like fun. What's the old
Devin Singletary? We want Devin Singletary.
The old takes exposed. That entire meeting is one old takes exposed. You literally have John Mara sitting in the corner going, if he goes to the Eagles, I am going to be upset. And then he literally, like the GM is literally saying, like, well, he's not going to go for 2,000 yards.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like,
it's unbelievable.
Those guys are such idiots. They're such idiots.
They're
their best player. They kissed him off. The player that their fans had the most invested in, they kissed him off. I mean, they're just such a bad organization at this point.
Look, I want to extend the shouldn't play Brock Purdy to shouldn't play George Kittle to shouldn't play Deebo Samuel, because
Nick,
Deebo, you still don't know what you still don't know if you're going forward with him or not. You think he's coming back, but if he gets hurt here, you're then out of options. I wouldn't play Bosa. I wouldn't play Warner. I know that we're now deep enough in the depth chart. It's getting harder to field a football team. But if you're signing dudes off the streets who might be starting at right tackle tonight, you can sign a middle linebacker too to do it. I mean, like, I just, if anybody gets hurt, there should be a crucifixion of this team's front office and coaching staff if anybody gets hurt in this game. Because they didn't have to be out there. This whole, well, it's football, anybody can get hurt anytime. Yeah, that's my point. That's not your point. And that's what they'll say. That it's football. Anybody can get hurt anytime. That's my point. You can't use that point too. The point that I am making is anybody, especially a quarterback behind a third string offensive line, facing a team that is just fucking Dan Campbell level pissed off. You're asking for it.
Let me ask you this. Who's more foolish tonight? Kyle Shanahan for playing Brock Purdy potentially behind the worst offensive line in pro football, literally one game or two games before they're about to come to a big money long-term contract extension with him. Is that 10 times stupid? Or are the Lions and Dan Campbell, who showed his stupidity by the way he called the NFC Championship game, he's the reason they didn't go to the Super Bowl. He might have been the reason they were in that game, but he's also the reason they lost that game. And there's no doubt about that. He's going to play his starters tonight, and it means nothing. Nothing. Next week against the Vikings for the Lions is the number 1 seed regardless. This game means absolutely nothing. Dan Campbell, if anybody goes down in this game and can't play next week against the Vikings, next week against the Minnesota Vikings is the battle for it all. NFC North division title, first round bye in the playoffs, road to the Super Bowl comes through your stadium. It's all on the line next week. And yet Dan Campbell's like, we're going out there to win the game. We're going out, So that's great. But once again, both guys, Shanahan's going to get ripped like crazy. And as far as it's football. Like Shanahan's counter is, it's football. I got to field a football team. What do I do? Okay, here's your barometer. Here's your measuring stick, Kyle. If you're asking for advice, here it is. Any individual player that's presence or absence would move the betting line in week 1 should not play in week 17 in a meaningless season. That's the standard. So do you sit this guy? Do you sit that guy? I don't know. Would he, if you had him on week 1, would he move the betting line? So who would? Nick Bosa, Brock Purdy, George Kittle. That's probably it. That is probably it. Well, everybody else probably does not move the line. So the guys who move the line have to move it in here. The line cannot be moving in the other direction. Not after. I mean, you want to compound a bad season to make it worse? Oh, and to top it off, they lost Nick Bosa for all of 2025 in the second quarter in week 17 against the Lions in a garbage game. My God, what? And the people that are, all I'll say is the people that aren't saying nothing about this today are the exact same people that tomorrow, whether they be media people who try to ask the question kindly, Kyle, I realized that you had a game to play, and I realized that there's a lot of pressure to win all of games that you always play. But in hindsight, do you regret putting Nick out there knowing now that you won't have him at any point in 2025? That question's coming.
Right.
That question's coming.
Let me give you the Shanahan answer. He'll be like, no, not really. In this league, we go out and we play, and that's what that's who we are, and that's what we do. We're football players, and that's what we. And he'll be lying through his fucking teeth as he's saying that, because if we're all football players and we all got to play, then that means you should have had Trent Williams signed up in this offseason and had him out there ready to go week 1, and not been. Twiddling your thumbs with Brandon Ayuk. Like you cannot have it really, really matters all the time and then go about conducting business like we got plenty of time. Doesn't matter right now. And it's mind-numbingly frustrating to deal with the team at this point here. Look, everyone should be upset. Everyone should be upset. Everyone should be angry at this moment, because this moment we didn't think it was coming, and it felt like it's a lot of bad luck, and it's a little bit of by design, and it's a little bit of should have seen it coming, all wrapped up into one. But now we know where we are. We know what the fork in the road is. There is no, and then something good happened. You win 2 more games this year. All you do is devalue your own draft pick and draft order next year while you're risking injury when you shouldn't. It's just that simple to me. I'm an adult now. Like, I get how it works. I get how business works. The NFL clearly gets how business works. The Niners clearly get how business work.
It's like anything. I'm going to drive to Santa Clara this afternoon for the game. I could wear a seatbelt. I could not. The car is going to go 70 miles an hour. What if I don't wear a seatbelt and I get in a terrible car accident? What do I say? Hey, man, so that's what happens when you go 70 miles an hour. You know, sometimes you can get ejected from your car in the middle of an accident. Well, not if you're wearing your seatbelt. Well, why would you wear your seatbelt? Because it's smart. It's safe. Is it, you know, could you get down there without the seatbelt? Yeah, you could. But you know what? You got a better, your odds are better by playing it safe. Sometimes in life, your odds are better by playing it safe.
49 problems. That's why we get 17 paychecks. That would absolutely be in Kyle's retort to that question too. That's why we get 17 paychecks. No, and any player will tell you, hey.
But what about Trent? Are you docking Trent's pay this week because he didn't play?
You get paid to practice. You get paid to prep. Most of these players will tell you they'll give you the game for free. Like, that's the fun part. They love going out there and playing. That's when the lights are on. That's when you're a pro, baby. Stands rocking and you're playing and they're zooming in on you. And that's the free stuff. It's the grind. It's the rehab. It's the injury. It's Monday through Saturday. That's what you get paid for in the NFL, not the games. The games are what you want to do. Everything else is work. So there's an awful lot of comfortable talking out of both sides of their mouth that NFL coaches have to go through. And I would just appreciate full-on transparency. Kyle going up there and saying, like, yeah, of course we want to represent ourselves well. We never want to embarrass, ourselves, the logo, the shield, or any of that. But week 1 of next season means more to me at this point than Lions and Cardinals. Like, there would be some who tried to rip him for that. But even as you were writing that story, you'd realize how stupid those words were coming out of your fingers once you started reading what you had just written. The Niners have no more regular season proving ground available to them. As we said last Friday, Larry, this team could go 17-0 next regular season. The entire collection of every 49er fan you ever met won't give a shit. Won't give a shit until you win a Super Bowl. That's it. There is no more, and everyone went home happy without a Lombardi Trophy. There's no going home happy at the end of this year. It ain't available. It's not to be sold. It's not to be bought. It is not an item in the store that you can just browse. Oh, well, it was a really disappointing year, but I was at that Lions game, and that was a fun night. And I'm going to Arizona, so I'm happy that they won that game too. No, well, you candy ass. It's got nothing to do with any big picture or anything. The big picture is just one that the big picture is the little picture. It's got a Lombardi Trophy.
Yeah, come on. They're competing for Super Bowls. And all I would say is compete for the next Super Bowl that you can possibly win with the same intensity that you competed for this Super Bowl. And so you want Brock to be there next year. This one, somebody's quoting Kenny Rogers here. Everyone's worst nightmare. Larry, tell him you got to know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run. There you
Never count your money sitting at a table.
There'll be time enough for counting when the dealing's done.
Yeah, thank you, Kenny. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
there
you.
You go.
Way, like and subscribe just for that Kenny Rogers knowledge right there. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, do I want to see the 49ers? I mean, to me, it's not even about draft position. It's not like, oh my God, their draft position. No, it's not about that. It's about the fact of the matter is, it's kind of like the Klay Thompson thing. They lost Klay Thompson. They lost him at the end of the year. So then they lost him for the whole next year. And that is the ante gets upped in a sport where there are year-long rehabs. The ante is upped as the season goes on. And that's just the way it is. If you're like Dre Greenlaw and you get hurt on Super Bowl Sunday, you're gone for the next year. And his whole year was screwed up this year. He did nothing, basically. He just rehabbed all year. And the Niners, do you think Jed wants another year that's washed away because of whatever, injuries, whatever. This is the Niners are, by the way, are the most all or nothing team of all time. Since 2003, we're talking about over 20 years ago, Damon. The 49ers in the they're the most Jekyll and Hyde team. In each of the last 22 seasons, going all the way back to 2003, the 49ers either make it to the NFC title game or they miss the playoffs. I mean, what are the odds of that? That's amazing. Every year for 22 years, they either go to the NFC title game, they've been there 7 times, or they miss the playoffs entirely. They've done it 15 times. They've had 7 different head coaches over this span. But I'll tell you, the one thing, I'm a big Shanahan backer, and there's a lot of people that I've come in contact with in the last month who are like, Krug, I love you. I love your show. I love listening to your streams and you and Damon on after the games and all. I mean, but I'm totally wrong. I totally disagree with you. I think Shanahan's got to go. I'm like, what? Really? But there's a lot of people that are anti-Shanahan. And this is pretty interesting. If Shanahan and the Niners lose tonight, this is the 4th time since he's been here that the Niners have 10-plus losses. The only other coaches in the history of the NFL to have 4 10-loss or more seasons with one team. John McKay, 6 of them for Tampa Bay. When we were kids, Tampa Bay just always was tire fire, and he was the coach for years. Bart Starr, most popular Packer of all time, 4 10-loss seasons for Green Bay, and Gus Bradley, 4 for the Jaguars, who were obviously the Jaguars. I think Gus Bradley's actually a pretty decent football coach. I don't know about a head coach. But what do you make of Shanahan's tenure here, where they've had lots and lots of success and no titles, but they've also had now 4 10-loss or more seasons?
I would say it is a lot of
seasons.
That is a lot. And I know people accuse us of being in the excuse-making business for Kyle Shanahan. All of those 10-loss seasons. Now, how about this? Now, a single 10-loss season has come under normal circumstances, right? I mean, decimated by injury would be a really good way to describe each one of those 10-loss seasons. Not that they're the only team in football that gets hurt, but all of those years came with something that sort of explains it more than head coach does not know what he is doing. The
first two you can absolutely chalk
right.
up.
The first 2 being he had to turn over a 53-man roster almost in its entirety. The
third one was the Jimmy Garoppolo week 3 injury, right?
Exactly.
And 20 guys on the IR. And then this one. This is the 4th one. So this is the one that, in my opinion, is the most egregious. This is his worst season by far.
Without a doubt. This is the one where the disappointment at so many different steps felt more avoidable than it was. So
amazing too, because it came on the heels of a good draft. Usually bad years come when you have a bad draft. Niners actually had a phenomenal draft. And that's how bad their drafting was in the previous years.
And what's really odd, too, is that this team ran roughshod over a really good NFC West until the NFC West dipped massively in terms of how threatening it was. And that's when they couldn't win NFC West games anymore. It's really weird. This team kicked the NFC West ass for years in a row here. And in the worst division we've seen in a while is when they've sunk to the bottom of it.
Well, okay. So let's come up with what we think the reason is, because there's always some reason. I would say that the reason is because if you say what stands out about this team this year, it's the 4th quarter collapses, the red zone too. But it's the 4th quarter collapses. Now, obviously, the red zone numbers are down because of CMC. He was, the Niners have lost some serious weaponry this year. Debo died, and Ayuk and CMC both got hurt. And so you take those three guys away, and it was just like, whoa. All of a sudden, they had nothing close to what they had. So that's a major factor. But to me, the biggest factor was the 49er front office missing on 20 picks in the first 3 rounds, because the Niners already were a top-heavy roster with not a lot of quality depth, but then missing on all those picks and then making the Hargrave move and then having all that top-end talent that you had to pay, they're very top-heavy, and they're like, Kittle's awesome, but the backup tight ends aren't. Warner's awesome, but the rest of the linebacking core isn't. You know, I mean, Bosa's a hell of a player. The rest of that line, totally forgettable. So, you know, Lenore is a special player. Yeah, but there's still a lot of youth and inexperience in that secondary. So I'm just they lack depth, and that's why they suck in the fourth quarter. They're good at beginnings of games. They even look good almost every week at the beginning of the game. But late in the game, their defense falls apart. In the Seattle game, their defense at the end was no resistance at all.
I think
and they lost all those games that they led in the division in the fourth quarter.
I think you're right. I think that the compound interest of all of those blown or missed draft picks definitely came home to roost this year. They were able to walk the balance beam there because they had gotten, some guys in the 5th round that really know how to play, 4th rounders. That guy's good. 6th rounder, sort of, lightning struck there again too. And they were able to stay on the beam. This is the year they fell off the balance beam of all those missed draft picks. But I really think if you had to circle what, specifically this year, where did it go wrong? I really do think it's wide receiver play. Wide receiver play went from being an elite group of weapons to the worst group of weapons. I mean, it wasn't even like a gradual fall off. It was from week 1 to tonight. The 49ers wide receivers have collectively, for whatever reasons you want to use, but collectively, you guys have all sucked. All of you. Like Juwan Jennings, it's a nice story. As soon as we move the everybody likes the Juwan Jennings story from his season as well too. That is it. Just they have not been good enough by the man. This team plays no more than 4 wide receivers. 3.5 of them have been disappointments. I do like Juwan Jennings. I cannot label him a disappointment, but he is half of a really quality starting NFL wide receiver. He's good.
He's a good player. He's a good player.
And you got to have a great wide receiver. Yeah. And then 49ers there's nobody who's a great wide receiver. There's nobody who's even a good wide receiver on this team this year.
Well, and this is another area, the people who want to blame Brock. Last year, he had these awesome weapons. This year, he still has those awesome weapons on the roster, making the money, taking the roster spots, but they're all hurt and they're all out. Outside of JJ and Kittle, I mean, his top 3 weapons from last year are doing absolutely nothing. So it's not just that they don't have their weapons; it's that it's an NFL roster. So if you have 3 really expensive receivers that are all really good, let's say, and you don't get anything out of them, well, you might get better receivers in the future, but your roster is, what are the odds that you're going to have really good young receivers sitting behind your really high-priced, veteran receivers? So Brock didn't just lose his weapons, and it's like, oh, well, last year he had awesome weapons. Yeah, last year his weapons absolutely carried him. But this year, without those weapons, he doesn't. It's not like the games aren't played. He still has guys running around out there. They're just not. They're not getting anything done. They're not, and they're not good players. So, I mean, I should say at running back, Mason was a pretty good player. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, you lose Debo and Ayuk, and you don't have backup receivers. I mean, Conley's a special teamer. Pearsall's been hugely disappointing. To me, Cowling can't even get out there. He's not even playing.
Larry, Jordan Mason, to me, is like a shining example of what is wrong with Kyle Shanahan's thinking, right? You have a guy who is leading the NFL in rushing. Christian McCaffrey comes back, and he vanishes. I know there was an injury in there too, but the amount of going from leading the NFL in rushing to you aren't even involved in game plans was staggering to me. And then when he gets, healthy again, it's not like it was, the injury that we had to get through to get to him, and now he's back, everybody. No. And Isaac Guerrero was another guy. Right after he played his 4 best weeks of football, it took 6 more weeks to see him again almost. And that is just, again, I like Kyle Shanahan calling plays. I like Kyle Shanahan designing drives. Kyle Shanahan drafting players and managing his own roster is where I think he needs to have a little help brought in to help him evaluate. I don't think when Kyle goes back and looks at practice footage, does he just see Jacob Cowing cannot play? Like every single bit of practice footage is another week to not believe that Jacob Cowing can get a play from the line of scrimmage. And if you are seeing that on tape, what the fuck are you doing in practice? Like, how come your guys aren't getting better? I would almost say like Steve Kerr too. Like, how come Jonathan Kuminga 4 years in remains like this raw project? He should be a little less raw by now, medium rare, right? At the very least, he doesn't need to be well done. But who is guiding these young players along? Because it feels like Kyle develops a little bit of a doghouse for them, and that's just where they live until they're cut or waived or just, Willie sneeded out of here because they were never able to become favorites. It is weird, man.
Well, you just can't. I know it sounds like I'm beating the dead horse on this, but just ask yourself, where would the Niners be today if instead of missing on 20 picks in the first 3 rounds, how about they missed on 10? If they missed on 10, then you would imagine what this football team would look like if you had 10 more players drafted in rounds 1, 2, or 3 on your roster and producing. What if Drake Jackson was a stud? What if Danny Gray was a burner who was actually good? What if, Trace, you name it. What if, I almost said Trace Jackson Davis. What happens if, who was the running back that they drafted? Ty Davis Price. What if Ty Davis Price was leading the league in rushing? Except none of these things happen. So Kyle Shanahan is a very accomplished offensive play caller. Is Nick Sorensen a very accomplished defensive coordinator? Is John Lynch a very accomplished drafter? They may need to have guys who are as accomplished in those 2 positions as Kyle is in his position. They actually may need a defensive coordinator who's done it before. And they may actually need a general manager who hits at a higher rate than their current general manager. So, it's like, I have no vendettas against anybody. I'm just looking at it for what it is, trying to figure it out like everybody else. But the reality is that they should be this bad when you look at their drafts and you've seen them miss 20 picks in the first 3 rounds. They've only been running the draft for a few years. They've only been here. This is their 8th year. But now every single guy on the roster is a guy that they handpicked. So if they don't have the roster, it's on them. So you can't sit there and say, well, our roster wasn't good enough. You're not good enough at putting together the roster. If I was Jed, I would. There's no whoa, who do we blame here? You've missed on 20 picks in the first 3 rounds, Jed. 20. There's only 53 guys on the roster. Why the Lions the Lions? Because they're hitting. They're hitting in free agency. They're hitting in the draft.
Well, and that's the thing. It's all of those picks, and still having missed all those picks, they had a deep team that they then gutted to bring in Javon Hargrave. So their big free agent signing along at the defensive line just didn't work out again for them. And there's a lot that goes into the stew that we're eating this year for sure. Thumbs up, everyone. Hit that like button. Hit subscribe. I know that I'm going to be back tonight, Larry, with a watch party. Sam Batesh will be my second quarter guest. He's going to be coming on in, and we're going to be talking 49ers and NFL season all around, what the playoffs are going to look like. So we're going to do a little watch party for Monday Night Football again. I don't know how much partying there is left for 49er fans, but they seem to think it's therapy, so we'll do that. Thanks again for joining us last week, Larry. It was a pleasure having you on. And then Larry and I will be back Tuesday morning with Wake Up. We're going to be back at it tomorrow morning. And then Wednesday is New Year's Day. We're taking that off. And then we'll, of course, be back on Friday as well. But thanks to everyone for watching. I know we got some super chats to get to. The only real bit of news about the 49ers that I have to share with the audience today, Larry, is that we've got a game time for the Arizona game. The NFL reserves final week kickoffs to see what game's important, what game needs to go where, and what window. Well, neither the 49ers or Cardinals are doing anything in the postseason, so they're getting a 1:25 window. That game will be kicking off at 1:25 Sunday, final game of the year. And let me just tell you, man, the way that the NFL uses all the time in the holidays to get as many standalone games as it can, and they can't just like bury a bad football game in a schedule of 7 other games are happening right now so you can ignore the bad game in the name of watching the good game. Dude, there's been some shit football played this holiday season. Like since Christmas kicked off, there have been so many bad games. And Larry, you know what this league never is going to need? An 18th game, a 19th game, or a 20th game. And it's probably all going to come and it'll happen in our lifetimes because the ask for more money will never go away. And more money means more games. I get it. But like, I don't need a week 18 game. Like this should still be a 16 game regular season. A 17th game is stupid. It feels like I either want to get to the playoffs or just shut it down at this point. But there's one more game that the entire league has to yawn its way through for the most part before we get to the good stuff. And if they do add in an 18th, 19th, 20th game, I think they're going to be playing the Super Bowl in March. Well, hi, everybody. Welcome to March. It's Super Bowl time. There is a little too much football. And there has been, I think, a year of bad football that rating success camouflages because we're just addicted to it because of fantasy, because of gambling. I don't know. But the NFL gets to get away with good game murder and still enjoy robust ratings.
I mean, there's good games I thought there were a bunch of good games this week. I mean, I watched Vikings Packers. I thought that was a hell of a game.
That was a good game. That was a good game. And because
there are some blowouts. There are some blowouts, but only really, you know what was an interesting thing is yesterday morning, I told Kev, hey, I want a money line parlay. Get me Bills, Eagles, Bucks, Dolphins, Packers, who I wanted, Commanders, Lions. Big money line parlay. And he's like, Dad, I can't get those down. They would not take money line parlays on the big favorites. The Bills, the Eagles, the Bucks, I think. They didn't take those. You couldn't get it. You couldn't. I mean, at least who I was wagering with, I could not get down on a money line parlay on some of these really, Bills are 8-0 at home. They're 12-3, or they were 7-0 at home. They were 12-3. They're playing the Jets. The Jets are awful. 4-11, but you couldn't get it down. So I thought I was a little surprised by that. I just didn't think that they would do that. And then as far as, the other thing that I think is kind of interesting is that this Lions team comes in tonight, and most of our lifetime, Damon, the Lions have been bad. I mean, I most years, the only time I ever watch the Lions is on Thanksgiving.
Well, let me give you the entire history of the Detroit Lions.
Yeah. Okay.
Here we go.
Right.
Dick Night Train Lane.
There you go.
Barry Sanders,
Dick LeBeau. Yeah, something like that.
You got it. We're all caught up.
Yeah.
They've had two significant players in the history of the franchise. We liked Calvin Johnson, no doubt about that. He was a stud.
Great. Billy Sims was spectacular.
Yeah,
that's going way back.
If we're measuring franchises from most pathetic to least pathetic, the Lions are, if they're not the engine of the most pathetic train, they're the second or third car in the train. They have been inglorious forever. So,
well, I bring up the Lions because to me, there's so much football. You're absolutely right, and there's so much talk about football, and yet for a sport that there's this much talk about, the architect of the Lions, the true greatness of the Lions, is Brad Holmes. Brad Holmes. You know, I mean, and he's a 45-year-old executive who was with Charlie Army and Dick Vermeil in St. Louis with the Rams. He was part of the front office that put together the greatest show on turf. He has been the Lions GM since 2021. This guy's is quite a story too. He played college football at North Carolina A&T. Very smart guy. Graduated cum laude from North Carolina AT&T. Bachelor of Science. 4-year letterman, defensive tackle. Anyway, he was team captain. The guy in 2009 or 1999 goes home for break and gets in a car accident, and he was in a coma for a full week. So this guy, is getting a second chance at life. The Lions hire him in 2021 to be their general manager. Okay. And why? Because they have just been horrible. I'm looking at their previous drafts. They got Frank Ragnow in 2018. That wasn't bad. They got Hawkinson in 2019, but the rest of their picks all just bums. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. 2020, they screwed up with the top 5 pick. They went with Jeff Okudah from Ohio State. He just was a bust.
I remember Jeff Okudah.
Yeah, he was great in college. Total bust draft. So they fired their GM, and I don't even know who it was. They bring in Brad Holmes in the 2021.
So the GM before Brad Holmes was Bob Quinn.
Bob Quinn, who actually is a pretty bright guy too. He went to New England. He's from New England, but I think he went to Tennessee after that, and then like out of nowhere just resigned. Like really, like resigned out of the blue. So anyway, just back to Brad Holmes. He shows up in 2021. Now they wind up with the top 10 pick because they're a bad team. They took Penei Sewell. Okay. But they also got in that draft Aleem McNeil in the 3rd round. And they got this guy in the 4th round named Amon-Ra St. Brown. So first draft, he hits with the pick that you got to hit, the top 10 pick. But then he also hits on a superstar player in the 4th round. So that's the first year. The second year, they were also bad. And he winds up with another top 5 pick. And he takes Aiden Hutchinson. But guess what? Trent Baalke took Trayvon Walker in front of him. Yep. So, I mean, we know what bad GMing looks like. But
by the way, there was a fire. Oh, they're coming after me with airplanes over my stadium right now. The clouds don't like me anymore.
Who would actually do that, Lowry? All I do is do sit-ups and push-ups and try to eat right and watch a lot of film. Anyway,
look, but you know what?
So Aiden Hutchinson. So he got Aiden Hutchinson. He also got Jameson Williams, Kirby Joseph, Malcolm Rodriguez, all in that draft.
Next year, Jared Goff.
Traded for Jared Goff. Traded Stafford, and in the process got Goff. And then 2023 draft. Listen to this. Listen to the first 4 picks in 2023. Jahmyr Gibbs, Jack Campbell, Sam Laporta, Brian Branch.
Money, 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 money.
Star. It's just amazing. And then in this last year, they badly needed some DBs, and he gets Terrion Arnold and Enos Rakestraw right out of the chute, and my buddy Sione Vaki in the 4th round, and all 3 of those guys, Rakestraw, Arnold, and Vaki, are all playing ball. So it's like Brad Holmes, Brad Holmes. The Lions are this incredible story. Brad Holmes is the story within the story. And yet you could walk down the street. This guy could walk down the street in any major city in America and be completely anonymous. He could walk through tonight's at Levi's. He could walk through the press box. Nobody's going to recognize Brad Holmes.
Right.
Nobody knows anything about Brad Holmes. And he's the hottest GM in the game. And he's absolutely picking winners. And that's how you do it. Why are the Lions Lions? It's not because of Dan Campbell. I'm sorry. It's not. This is the best offensive line going in the game. This is one of the best receiving cores in the game. Montgomery and Gibbs might be the best combo running it in the game. Laporta is the best receiving tight end, I think, in pro football. Aiden Hutchinson's a phenomenal defensive end who is playing out of his skull. This Lions team is about players. Shanahan said it this week. He's like, yeah, I mean, but Ben Johnson's amazing. He's a great play caller. And he's got tremendous personnel. And that, to me, the story of the Lions is not Dan Campbell. The story of the Lions is the personnel turnaround by this awesome young personnel guy who gets no credit.
I think he's done a great job, but here's the thing. I don't think we need to cut Dan Campbell's legs off to make Brad Holmes look taller. We should just say
Dan Campbell would have gone to the Super Bowl last year, Damon, if he just coached worth a damn.
Right.
He was the reason they didn't go to the Super Bowl.
Super Bowls if he would have coached worth a damn. You know what I mean? Like we can't hold Dan Campbell's feet to the fire for blowing a lead in a big game and then talk about how Kyle Shanahan's good at anything, right? I mean, that's
Kyle Shanahan's Dan Campbell's just started doing this. Kyle Shanahan's been to multiple Super Bowls. He's been there as a coordinator. He's been there as a head coach twice in a fairly short amount of time. Dan Campbell is being hailed as this awesome coach. And it's this story of the Lions is not like De La Salle against Modern Day and man, you got to credit Ladouceur. No. This is they are loaded. They are stacked. This might be, to a man, the all-pro team on offense. I mean, the all-pro team in the NFL could be Penei Sewell, Amon-Ra, the way Goff, Montgomery, Gibbs, Laporta. I mean, these guys are great. These guys are all great.
Where I think Dan Campbell has mattered here. And you know what? So
I'm not saying he's a bad coach. I'm just saying
let me draw a little bit of a parallel line here. Even though one had an awful lot of experience going into his first year on the job, and the other, again, was a first-time head coach hire that felt like a gamble and paid off. But much like the Detroit Lions, the Indiana football team that I root for, my Hoosiers, have been galactic fucking losers for about a century. They needed a coach who would come in and just say, this bullshit way of accepting losing around here is over, as much as they needed the talent. And all of that is hot air if you don't have the talent to back it up. But I think Dan Campbell has done an incredible job of breathing a culture of winning into a franchise that is defined by its culture of losing. So I'm going to give Campbell credit for really changing the mind of how everyone thinks. And, this is where I think that Jared Goff deserves a little freaking credit too, because, how many quarterbacks reach a Super Bowl and then get thrown away in a trade for a better quarterback? That happened to Jared Goff. He's in a Super Bowl with McVay. They lose it. They make the big trade for Stafford. And it's one of those trades that has actually worked out well for both sides. The Rams obviously are very happy with the Super Bowl that they won. And in Detroit, they are thrilled to have the single best quarterback that they have had in forever, in Jared Goff. So, I mean, I think that Campbell does deserve some credit for.
Yeah, but I'm not saying he's not a good leader. He's a good leader. I'm just saying this story is not about his game planning. This story is not about his play calling. He doesn't call plays. And this isn't about some genius that he has. This is about players. And the 49ers regression is also about players. Niners just don't have any players. They've missed too many times. And the Lions have suddenly, I mean, it's just like anything. Go look at you want to, understand the 85 Bears? Go look at the 83 draft, Go look at the draft 2 years before. You want to understand the Cowboys of 92 and 93? Go look at what they did in 90 and 91 and 92 in the draft. It's like, the draft is literally like 2 years before. Whatever you do in the draft, you win in the draft, you're eventually going to win. They won in the draft, and now they're winning. And the Niners, have lost in the draft recently. They won this year, but it's not about this year. It's about what you did over the last 2 or 3 years. And the Niners, if we brought up their draft history, it has been abysmal. Their number ones have been McGlinchey, Kinlaw, Lance, Pearsall. I mean, Reuben Foster, Solomon Thomas. These guys can't pick a first-round pick. And if you can't hit in the first round, you ain't going to be on top for very long. They haven't been able to hit in the first round. They're no longer on top.
I think
they were close. They were close.
At all times, we give coaches and quarterbacks too much credit and too much blame. The way that a lot of people want to say, like, Kyle really should have topped out as an offensive coordinator more than a head coach. I'm going to tell you that Dan Campbell is more suited to be a head coach than he is a coordinator. Right? Like, he's a tone setter type of guy. He's the drum beat that everybody marches around. And that's what Dan Campbell is really good at, setting the tone of, we're here to kick ass. We're here to be super aggressive. Mr.
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
Here's the thing, though, Damon. He's getting applauded because people feel like he's on the verge of winning the Super Bowl.
Well,
in reality, if he coaches, in this playoffs, the way he coached in last playoffs, he's not going to win the Super Bowl.
He's allowed to learn.
Then people are going to look up and go, wait a second. Dan Campbell fucked up last year. Dan Campbell fucked up this year. And then after a while, it's going to be like, whoa, Dan Campbell, he's a great soundbite. He's a great leader, but as you said, he's not an offensive coordinator. He's not a defensive coordinator. So his job is to kind of run the game. He doesn't run the game all that well. They just have awesome talent. If they don't win, people will come for him.
Well, so if everyone doesn't win, everyone gets come for. If he does win, he will have one more Lombardi Trophy than Kyle Shanahan could dream about. And he is instantly a better coach than Kyle Shanahan because he's got the Lombardi Trophy and Kyle doesn't. So that's the way it works. So,
yeah, but he doesn't. But that's the point. You're talking like he's already won it, and he's not won it. And I don't think. Here's the thing about the Lions. I don't think they're going to win it this year. I really don't. I think they're going to wind up.
I think Lions in the NFC title game unless the Vikings crash that party. And I think we got in the AFC, we're on a collision course to another Chiefs Bills. Feels that way?
No, I don't. In the as far as I think you said in the Chief. I thought you were talking about Super Bowl. I like Bills and either Packers or Eagles. Now I know the Packers just lost to the Vikings. A lot of people today are liking Vikings or Lions. But I Sam Darnold, I don't believe in Sam Darnold. And as I said, I don't really believe in Dan Campbell, and also just kind of feel like they're kind of beat up. It's amazing that Detroit's playing this well.
Right.
But when it gets time to, the nut cutting time in the playoffs, you're going to miss Aiden Hutchinson. You're going to miss David Montgomery. Absolutely, they're going to miss him. But I think they've done an incredible job. I am taking the Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. Until it doesn't happen, I think it's going to happen. They just do it. When the game matters the most, they win it all the time. How? I really can't explain it. Patrick Mahomes, high ankle sprain, that apparently just doesn't seem to matter to him. So it just he never stops. They're 15-1. They're fifth. The Chiefs are 15-1.
Yeah, they're the least impressive 15-1 of all time. I would love to be the least impressive 15-1 of all time. I'd love to be.
They're just really good. I mean, and this weekend, looking around the league. You see how far the Niners are away from this thing. I mean, Washington's got Jaden Daniels. They're coming. They're playing terrific ball. The Vikings, Sam Darnold's playing well. O'Connell's doing incredible things there. They look good. Eagles, put up 41. They got Saquon Barkley. They got a great offensive line, defensive line. Tanner McKee and Kenny Pickett both played well off the bench. Tampa Bay looks good right now with Baker Mayfield. The Bills are looking really, really good with Josh Allen. The Chargers are suddenly looking really, really good. They got J.K. Dobbins back. By the way, who would you give your MVP vote to between Lamar, Josh Allen, and Joe Burrow? Joe Burrow's got the best stats of anybody in the league, and yet they're 500. Joe Burrow yesterday was amazing. He was 39 of 49 for 412 and 3 touchdowns. And Joe Burrow's got the most amazing stats, get the most yards, the most touchdowns. He's an incredible player. I would have given it to Josh Allen. A lot of people feel like I've heard other people say it's Lamar. It's definitely one of those three. Do you mark Burrow down because his team is 500?
I would say this. We've reached the point in Patrick Mahomes' career where he's getting the Jordan treatment, because the truth is the MVP of this league is Patrick Mahomes at any and all times. Fuck your stats and your team. Patrick Mahomes is the sun that lights the universe of football. Mahomes is the permanent MVP, but you're not going to give it to just one guy every single year. So you're going to turn around.
And it has to be a quarterback always. It's always a quarterback, so you can't give it to Barkley.
If you're not going to give it to Saquon Barkley this year, the MVP is basically the league should split the MVP award from a quarterbacking award. They should take the MVP and divide it from most valuable quarterback and then most valuable player not considered a quarterback. They should really almost have two now, because if Saquon Barkley cannot crash the MVP vote this year, the same way that McCaffrey wasn't allowed to crash the MVP vote last year, then it'll never happen. I'd give it to Barkley. I would give it to Saquon Barkley right now. And I think Josh Allen is incredible. I think he's been fantastic. Lamar, if he goes down, the Ravens ain't winning another game this year. And obviously Joe Burrow, to me, and it's not that Joe Burrow's been the reason why the Bengals are losing football games, but you just can't have an MVP come from a losing team. It's just the way it goes. So sorry, Joe.
I think I got to go Josh Allen.
Joe, you're getting Cincinnati. But that's the thing. Joe, you're going to be Cincinnati your entire career. There will always be an element of you were awesome, but that's what Joe Burrow is signed up for in Cincinnati.
He's already been to one Super Bowl. We'll see if he gets one.
Right. He's going to get Super Bowl. He's going to go the Dan Marino route. I doubt we ever see him in a Super Bowl again.
Really? I think he gets back. I like what he's got going on there. I mean, look what he's got.
Here's the thing. Look what he's got today and watch it all go away tomorrow. The Bengals at the end of the day will make the cheap decision that blows this up or ruins it somehow, some way. I know they will. I trust them.
There's something about Burrow though that is like, I don't know. There's some magic about his whole demeanor. His demeanor on the field is just unmatched in some ways. I mean, he just is very, very in control out there.
Larry, we got to hit the supers.
All right, let's hit it. Travis Stewart says it will probably be over by halftime. No big money start. No big money. Well,
Travis, if it is over at halftime, come and watch my live stream. We'll keep you entertained. Thank you.
Fuji Simeon says, good morning, you two. Terrible weekend. Greg Gumbel died. Signs with the Diamondbacks. You were right, Larry. My holiday wish list was off. I need to be nicer to SI. Yeah, I mean, Corbin Burns to the Diamondbacks is a break. I mean, Giants fans don't realize that, and they're just so Giants fans. You had the hottest arm in the game in the second half of the year, and I looked it up. You know what the Giants' record was in the second half of the year with the hottest arm in the game? 500. The Giants were a 500 team with Blake Snell. Blake Snell threw a no-hitter and was totally unhittable. So guess what? It means there's a baseball, if you're a baseball novice, you worry about starting pitching. But guess what? Damon knows this better than anybody. There were people who were like, hey, the Cubs, Pryor and Wood, World Series. Well, the Cubs won a World Series, sure enough, but it wasn't with Pryor and Wood. And, everybody likes to point to one pitcher as Diamondbacks, okay, yeah, no, Diamondbacks will be better with Corbin Burns, but that's a lot of money for a long time. For 8 years.
There's no way around a lot of money in a long time anymore. There just isn't. Every contract that you're ever going to see in baseball is going to be a bad one. The only thing that I don't like about the Corbin Burns contract is that unfortunately he is coming to the the NL West no matter what. And if he's going to be in your division, Corbin, Logan, Hayden Birdsong, there could have been a little something interesting there, but it's
way too risky. Way too risky.
I'm good with it. That's
Here's the thing with hitters, if you pay them, unless they seriously die or have some problem, major problem, you got a reasonable expectation that they're going to be them.
What they should have done was
go, my elbow. And they walk off the mound and then they don't go back on the mound for like 3 years.
Right. I think the biggest like, you should have done that was the Teoscar Hernandez, and he obviously goes back. But Teoscar Hernandez signed with, pretty like a reasonable amount with the Dodgers to the point where the Giants could have come over the top of that and had themselves a really good bat. But maybe he just look at it this way. What moron would want to leave the Dodgers right now? You'd be crazy to walk away from the Dodgers because they're about to get Sasaki too, and they're going to win 120 games on the way to repeating as World Series champions.
I hope they don't get Sasaki. I mean, I'm hoping that somehow Sasaki comes to the Giants, just from the standpoint of look how much more interesting it would be. Baseball would be on the West Coast if the Dodgers are like this awesome 110 win team and the Giants win 58 games. That's not as good as the Dodgers have Ohtani and Yamamoto and the Giants have Sasaki, and it's a big weekend. You know what I mean?
Hey,
I want to see the Giants get Sasaki. Also, I'll say this. I like, Giants fans losing their mind over Corbin Burns. If they pivot to Pete Alonso, I want to watch the Giants. Look at it this way. Are the Giants beating the Dodgers? No. So what team do you want to watch? Do you want to watch a team that has Corbin Burns every fifth day, or do you want to watch a team that has Polar Bear in their lineup with maybe Eldridge every night? I'll take Polar Bear and Eldridge as the first base DH combo. As now who knows if Eldridge ever even makes it, but to me, I think the position player is the route I would want to go.
Most important thing that happened in Major League Baseball this past 4 or 5 days was the resignation of Dave Kaval. Goodbye, you douchebag.
What's the story there?
Big of an empty suit in the history of empty suits in Bay Area history. Dave Kaval has resigned because apparently as he's helping the I don't know. He's just a disgrace. Everything he says is a lie. He can't get anything done. He's been in charge of a new stadium and the Vegas operation, and the closest that he's come to fixing the A's is they're going to go play in a minor league ballpark in Sacramento. What a disaster. Anyways, we got. We got to go here, Larry. We got to hit some supers here. I told Jillian I would be up. We got kids home. Holy shit.
Okay. Fuji Simeon says thoughts on Dave Kaval leaving the A's.
You just got him, Fuji. Douche. Goodbye.
Fuji Simeon, will there be a show on New Year's Day? No. Like how coffee and caffeine gets me ready for the day. Wake up gets my day started. Any thoughts doing wake up Monday through Friday? That's it.
Well, who knows what could happen in the future, but I will say wake up will be back Tuesday, 9 a.m. tomorrow, recapping whatever the hell happens at Levi's Stadium this evening.
Fuji Simeon says, do 49ers only play Purdy and Stars for a quarter or two? Thanks for the video message for the merchandise purchase, Larry. Damon, any plans for hoodies?
We'll drop some hoodies on you next year. We just got the merch store up. We didn't want to go too big, too far, too much, too fast.
I wouldn't mind. I mean, if you're going to play Purdy for a quarter, okay, or two, now you're making sense. That makes sense. It doesn't make sense, but it makes more sense than playing him for 4 quarters. I want to see Tanner Mordecai. I'd like
Purdy
to see
should
it.
pull the Cam Ward, be like, I'm out at half.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, seriously. It was if I knew Cam was going to do that, I wouldn't have bet the Hurricanes. KR says, here's $5.49, which is a very interesting amount. He says, trap game tonight. 49ers win. Hope it's 649 next. What? Hope it's 6.49 next season. Hope
He's
it's
going to give us, the next Lombardi. Super chat will be $6.49 if the 49ers get this one done.
Maybe he's talking about the 6 Lombardi. He says, Happy New Year, go Niners, 5-time champions.
I don't know. Either way, thank you very much, KR.
Fuji Simeon says Brock Bowers is looking really good at tight end. Yes, he is. He's
best rookie season ever. Considering he didn't have a quarterback for a single game that he played, yeah, that was impressive.
That kid's good. KR says any players close to triggering performance bonuses. Oh yeah, I'm sure there are a bunch. I'll look for that this afternoon and see if I have that in the post game. I'm sure there always are though. But you got to remember this: there's another game to go, so probably we won't really be talking about in earnest till next week. Bay Area Baller, hey, what's up, Bay Area Baller? Good to see you, man. Happy New Year's and happy holidays to all the ballers. He says vehemently disagree. 13 needs to play. With only 17 games in a season, there's only 17 opportunities to gain some experience. 13 needs to improve.
I don't think there's an improvable situation in front of him, though. I think that he is taking the field this week with the worst football team he might ever have around him in his football life. There is less talent taking the field tonight in Santa Clara than has hopped on the field since the Jim Tom Sula era, right? I mean, that's how deep they are. They're playing a guy at right tackle, maybe, who you've never even seen or heard of before because he wasn't even here 2 weeks ago. So
I've already interviewed him, actually. But yes, normally most people have never heard of Austin Pleasance. Here would be my counter to this. Patrick Mahomes lost the Super Bowl to the Buccaneers, and he was running for his life. Why? Because his tackles were both out. There's a reason that, we all point to the stars and the quarterbacks, but guess what? Those guys in the line, those linemen, they kind of matter. And if you don't have good linemen and you can't block and your quarterback gets hurt, that's not good. So that's fine if he actually improves, Baller. But what happens if he comes out in the second quarter and gets keyholed and is done for next year? You're going to sit there and say, well, they had to play him.
You get that experience of being hurt.
Yeah, just look at it. Yeah, I mean, look at it this way. If you get your guy hurt, there's going to be a lot of second guessing. I mean, just think of it this way, too. If Kyle Shanahan had done what Dan Campbell had done last year in the NFC Championship game, how many people would have forgotten about that by now? Probably nobody.
No, all I can tell you is that there will be no second guessing that on this show. We have already first guessed it. So good luck.
All right. Joseph Radesco says, hey, $4.99. Thank you, Joseph. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, you need to help the Giants sign Roki. Driver him around in your Tahoe. Take him to Pig and a Pickle, Ike's, Sam's Chowderhouse, Dubliner, and Gordo, since you like that place. You got to help the Giants get some pitching.
It's on you, Larry.
Yeah, I would say this. That is one of the most interesting storylines, I think, in all of baseball, is where does Roki Sasaki wind up? Why? Because Roki Sasaki is awesome. I mean, I don't know. I saw the film. I couldn't believe it. He's really, really, really good. Like way, way, way better than Yamamoto. So that makes it incredible. But what makes it even more incredible is he came over here early. You don't have to outpay him. So it's everybody's got, I'm offering 5. They're offering 7. It doesn't really matter. He's going to go where he feels like he wants to live. A lot of Japanese investors really love buying real estate in San Francisco. And I don't know. We'll see. I mean, maybe, I would love to think the Giants have a shot. I got to think it's the Dodgers that he's going to go to. But maybe I think it's better for baseball if he comes here. I really do. And I'm not just saying that as a Giants fan. I think it's better for baseball if he doesn't go to L.A. Dale says, thanks to the bet whoring of the NFL and all those damn houses, they may not get to choose who to sit. Yeah. The gambling has a big impact on the NFL, but you can still sit your guys if you want to.
Right.
Space Cowboy.
And then they adjust the line and Vegas still wins.
Yeah, exactly. Space Cowboy. If they get embarrassed for the Lions game, so be it. Rather sit starters. More embarrassing if the players get hurt. Don't care. Just tank. I don't believe in tanking, but
this is admitting your situation. It's not tanking. It's reality.
I would say it's not just tanking is doing, just trying absolutely not to win. To me, it's not about the win or the loss. It's about preserving next year. You want to make sure next year's fully intact. That's
asset protection. That's it.
Absolutely.
Asset protection.
Greg RJZ says, not sure which one of you said this. Niners better not get blown out. But now you say to rest all the starters. What the hell? Oh, and happy birthday to me.
Blown out. Yeah, on happy birthday.
My point is this. You don't want to get embarrassed. But you're going to get there's levels of this. If you're putting Tanner Mordecai out there, you're basically saying you're developing. Then if you put all your best guys out there and you just get your doors blown off, that's quite a bit worse. But if I could choose, I would rather get blown out than lose Brock Purdy, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, George Kittle for week one next year. And I know all of you guys feel the same way. Anthony Light Scorpion says, "Oh, okay, you two NFL teams. Head coach doesn't sit veteran players if so-called season is lost. The only time they do is if they clinch a playoff berth, hence last season." So think about that. Why did you sit guys in week 18 last year? Why did Brock Purdy not play against the Rams last year? Because there was nothing to be gained. And why would I sit Brock Purdy this year? Same reason. There's nothing to be gained. Fuji Simeon says, Larry, the Tahoe is sturdy. Tahoe continues to have high safety ratings. It's more reliable and better at protection than the 49er offensive line. Maybe that's the key. I just parked the Tahoe between Purdy and the D-line. Alien Dejin says, I love the Niners, but them not covering these last two games is winning back my war chest. Got the Lions at -3. Oh, yeah. Lions at -3 is probably a must.
Feels good.
So I personally won't be betting it, but I would suggest you betting it. Joseph Rodesco, difference not just draft pick and injuries, but also massive difference between the third place schedule and a fourth place schedule. Green Bay, Dallas, Cincinnati, or New York, Chicago, Cleveland. I hear that, but I'm not as concerned.
Last place schedule, baby. You want it.
You absolutely do want it. But there's something about that. It's like, I'm not going to not play guys because of the schedule, but I don't want to see guys. You're already not going to have Ayuk week 1. I just don't want to see him have company on the sideline. Fuji Simeon says, Kevin is like your bookie and the Tahoe is collateral. Thank you, Fuji. Fuji says, Trent Baalke is a draft consultant. LOL, kidding. Yeah,
hey,
no.
He's going to be available.
Hey, John, look, let me say this. Yeah, the guy hasn't played in 3 years. He wets the bed. He really, he's got 2 blown ACLs, and I'm pretty sure that he's got plantar fasciitis. But we can get this guy in the late 3rd. I feel good about it. We could author his turnaround. I'm going to talk to Jed. All right. That's going to do it for us. That's all these supers. Thanks to the 20 people who gave them, or Fuji Simeon and 3 others. No, I'm just joking. Thanks to all of you guys who are supporting the channels, and do give a like and subscribe on both channels. We're off on Wednesday, but we are back tomorrow.
Yes.
So enjoy the Niner game tonight. I will be there watching it. I'll do a pregame on the radio, postgame on the radio, postgame on the Krueger show, and somewhere between 12 midnight and 1:30, I'll be walking to my vehicle. And then somehow I will get home, sleep, get up, and be back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.
And just remember, if you're going to make your way down to the game tonight, there can be a traffic problem. When you get that you get 101 all jammed up at around 5 o'clock. I know it's not on a work day for a lot of people still celebrating the holidays, but just be careful out there and leave a little bit early. And the 49ers will accommodate you by not opening parking lots early, because fuck you. But, that's
And you're so funny, Krueger. You're always talking about the Niners and Sorensen this and Sorensen that. Fuck Sorensen. And you know what? Yeah, I'll say this. There's going to be some traffic. Get down there early. I'll say right now, I'm going to go out to the garage. I'm going to start up the Miata, and I'm just going to let it warm up. I'm just going to let it warm. Then I'm going to get down there. I'm going to take down the top. I'm going to see how many people recognize me. I'm going to look around and say, hey, I've been on KMPR for years and years. Do you guys recognize me? I got a face for radio. Anyway, go Niners. Christmas, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Kwanzaa.
We had a guy tune in from Cuba last show on Friday, and there's people who grew up in Bay Area radio who get this, and then there's a poor dude who's watching from Cuba last Friday who at the end of this was probably like, adios mio, what the fuck is going on?
That is our homage to the great Ralph Barbieri. For
Thank
Damon,
you.
I'm Larry. Have a great day. Peace. Go Niners. Don't get embarrassed.